how do you use Kvasir, and how do you use all of these different dark mythics? We're going to go over team builds of the individual units, and in general where these units all fit in the meta and how strong they are. First off, we're going to just breeze past this rankings. You guys have seen this before. This is power level, utility, and longevity is what we are ranking these units off of. Now, we've just been through this. I am going to go through the individual skills and what this unit has pretty quickly, but I want to highlight some things. And for this one, it's defense res, low, attack speed, high. This unit is a glass cannon in the new form, which is tons of damage reduction, and let's look at this weapon quickly. So, the thing that I want to focus in on, you guys have seen this before, but the 70% damage reduction on first combat, and that includes brave hits. This is in dual phase, and that'll be important in just a second when we talk about that, but that is critical to how this unit interacts. The next thing is Light is Time is a 5 cooldown special. You've got Slang, which will bump it down to 4, so you really want 3 hits to happen. You want to attack in, have a unit attack back, and then attack in again to proc that special. Keep that in mind. That is really important to how this unit wants to work. The other thing we're really going to dive into is how to get the right units to get danced from this crazy special here. This is a lot like Marianne, Brave Marianne, but understand that on defense, you've got to play with the AI and make sure things happen in the correct order, and that makes things harder to do. And of course, the last thing is the times gate. We're going to talk about that less because I think that's going to be less impactful than the other pieces, although it will be fun because of the range. 4 spaces. It basically gives folks Wings of Mercy within 4 spaces, so they can teleport into the adjacent spaces, which is nice. But what you're really going to want to be focusing on is giving out other actions to units. This unit can act as a pseudo dancer if you do it right. All right, here it is. So understand this is a first cut, but I wanted to look at some ways we could possibly use Kvasir. And what we're seeing right now in the meta is a huge shift towards cav lines, and the cavalry that we have are so incredibly strong. Just looking at Sanaki, who is a powerhouse, that unit penetrates almost any tank you can possibly think of. It is absolutely insane, and because of that, we are worried less about Embla. The saviors right now just don't have the bulk to stand up to her. The same can be said to a lesser degree with Shamir. Shamir can really go in and wreak havoc on Omni tanks more than saviors. But what we're seeing here with this defense is we have ditched Embla altogether. We'll talk about her more in a second, but because of the power of nukes, right now she is not as impactful and as important. We will see that change if the tanks start getting stronger once again, which will happen in the coming months sometime because they love to ping pong back and forth with these things. What we're looking at here is Kvasir as a secondary initiator. The key is that you want to make sure this unit survives. You are giving this unit as much as you possibly can in the speed realm, because if you can't outspeed this unit, if you can't double, you aren't killing this unit unless you have piercing, and so few tanks have piercing right now. It just doesn't happen very often. So, looking back at this unit is built for speed. This unit is built to hit second. When you have 2 units like Sanaki and Shamir there, the chances are they are going to hit first. The way this works, and you can see kind of the way Dogger is set up, Dogger jumps in front of Nott and dances. Because that is a rally up, that happens most of the time unless you bait her out. And if you bait Dogger out, then you are also baiting out the units that you were worried about in the first place. So anyway, looking further into this, that gives everyone a lot of extra range. You are worried about Milla, but not as much because each of these nukes are powerful in their own right. What's happening then is you have a ton of range. You have a situation where Sanaki is most likely going to hit first, and then the next unit up would probably be Shamir. Third would be Kvasir, and that's where we're talking about using this unit as a pseudo dancer. Kvasir comes in, hopefully attacks and defeats someone. That is the plan. But this unit also doesn't have piercing, and damage reduction is running rampant everywhere. If you don't have piercing, it is very hard to secure a kill. So once she comes in, dances one of these other units that has attacked first, then what you have is a situation where that unit gets to attack again. Most likely at that point, either they are destroying the main tank there, or they have already destroyed the tank and you're taking out yet another unit. You start a chain reaction where a whole bunch of units then go down. When you're also offering damage reduction on your front line, not a lot of melee nukes have piercing when they are the Gale Force variety. Because of that means that it is easier for Kvasir to survive. All of that's looking at how powerful this unit and why I am very high on her. And I think she is actually better than Gulveg, which is absolute insanity to say. The thing that could change that, and we'll see how piercing goes, and I am definitely worried about this unit's longevity because of that. Knowing that there is something out there that could be the silver bullet that suddenly makes this unit no longer good, that is tough. For instance, this unit going up against something like Alir, you're going to have a lot of trouble with as long as Alir is properly supported. Now I want to quickly talk about how you stop this. This is something that you're going to have to start looking at player phase stuff for. We already talked about how this is really trying to stop anything like your melee Gale Force units. And it's going very hard in that regard. But personally, right now, I think Hit and Run is incredibly powerful, particularly because this team doesn't have any dancers proper. You can go up against this with Kagero or really anyone with Disarm Trap. Disarm Trap 4 is preferable, but I understand that has been on one unit right now, so that is hard to get to. When you start doing stuff like that, it takes this very powerful team and you can kind of chip away. Kagero doesn't generally have a problem with Tiki, and as long as she's supported properly, can come in and smack her with lethality and be just fine. For me, the priority here would be taking out Shamir, Tiki, and then Nott, taking out that front line, and that's in the first 2 turns using your safety fence and then pulling back as far as you can and letting them spread themselves out to you. That's a lot. Let's look at builds though. So coming in here, the first one is what we just looked at, and that is AR defense, and you're pairing them up with all of that. Understand that you, at this point in the game, you are worried more about protecting against player phase. These units will take out a tank, period. Looking over at the Summoner Duels, there are a couple things I could see her used in Summoner Duels, but understand that I am not a huge fan of her there. It is possible though. This is a theory craft using her on one of these Dogger line teams where you come all the way in and at the very end you could smack a unit with her and then actually dance another one of your units to get in a better position or something to that effect. The other possibility is to use her with Alencia. Keep in mind, Legendary Alencia can let calves warp. But again, this unit doesn't have piercing, so she's not going to be hitting incredibly hard. This is more if you like this unit and want to be able to use her more. The last interesting thing, she does score up to 756 in Arena, which is usable. And the other fact that she actually dances a unit is just invaluable. Have another unit come in, hit somebody hard, have this unit come in, smack a few people, dance that unit, and then you're off to the races. So a lot of fun. Scores on the lower side, but the thing about Dark Mythics is you don't have to waste blessings on them. You just have to use them every other season on their particular season. So that's a lot to be said. Just know A skill needs to be speed, speed, speed. B skill needs to be speed, speed, speed. C skill needs to be mostly speed. Obviously, we've done a few funny things here. Panic Smoke's an interesting thing because she already has Panic Smoke 3 in her weapon, but adding in the penalty bonus doubler is kind of neat. do understand that I like the other C skills better than that. The other thing I want to talk just briefly about is the use of the attuned skills on Defense Mythics. Defense Mythics actually get a ton of use out of the current ones of these. Fleeting Echo and Death Blow both are excellent on these units, and if you're looking at investing long-term into Defense Mythics, understand that they generally are going to have them around for a while anyway, so they are good candidates for these types of skills. All right, let's move on. I want to talk about some other units. We're going to look at Embla next. Embla's losing a little bit of value again because we talked about the power of tanks and how they're doing this. Looking at the skill, the nice thing is she has a lot of bulk, which is interesting, and there are a lot of B skills that have come out that kind of enhance what she does. But of course, the biggest thing to her is the Severance and Feud that is just absolutely taking the meta by storm, or has since kind of faded off. Yeah. Let's look at builds and talk about where you're using her right now. So we just talked about an AR defense using a cav line, and this is another version of that. I don't have a sample put up here, but you can kind of imagine those two calves being the end, Nott being in the middle, and having a dancer there instead of Kvasir can be nice. And yeah, because you can turn off saviors, it stops a lot of what the other team can do. But keep in mind the feud effect on Omni tanks is also huge and is very, very underrated. I see this unit less in summoner duels, and honestly, she just doesn't have the right types of skills. The mix she has, you would want her to be a little more beefy. So there's still some fun things you can do. Aerial maneuvers increases her range dramatically, and she can try to be a melee frontliner in that respect. The problem is what you'd really want out of a melee frontliner is guidance 4, and Severance is so important that it's tough to stomach switching those two out. There's still some interesting things you can do, and one of those I've seen is having this unit as a support for some kind of raid boss. I didn't put that up here, but that is a possibility, and the feud on the other team can help a ton. Lastly, this unit scores 758 can do a lot of fun things in Arena. Here I've got the attack speed prime 4 build, which is funny, but you've got attack speed rain snap and attack oath echo, which is giving 2 bonuses. I understand the extra movement isn't the most fantastic thing because you can get that when she transforms, but this lets you kind of sidestep that and gets you that much closer to having attack speed prime 4 active, which is not too hard if you've got 2 of those skills active. So, 758, you can definitely use this unit. Medeus. Looking at Medeus, I am mixed on this unit, and you guys know how this unit works. We've seen it a million times. The biggest thing, if we look at the skills, is the On Guard. On Guard is just so unique to this unit, and it is impossible to get away with how much of an influence it has on Light Season in general. It's why this unit shows up in Chaos Season so much, because the Bolt Tower is so strong. Now, keep in mind, this unit has become a very poor combat unit for the most part, and has started... It's harder for this unit to be a melee frontliner as well. The closer we get to having this unit solely be an on-guard bot, the less value they have. We're going to talk about ways you can get around that, but keep in mind the refine for this unit isn't until November 2025, which is a ways away. Looking at the teams, obviously the biggest thing with Medeus is using him on a team that has low threat range. And that means you can't go in and just puncture them with the Bolt Tower and then pick off everything else as you go. This is a pretty standard cav line, or Catria ball that I'm looking at here with Triandra, Bramimond, Tiki, and of course Catria, and then your choice of nuke as the final piece there. It's a lot of fun. The other thing is it's kind of fun to use him in a chaos defense along with Freyr, which is basically the no fun zone there. You can't debuff the team and you can't do on guard. So that requires some pretty beefy units, but it's very possible, especially if you're matching attack, or rather defense, with Asker and Freyr and using Soren. The big thing I want to point out with both of these builds is the thing I love most is that attack res scal 4, and what that can do when you put this unit as a frontliner is you can keep a lot of the shenanigans from happening that take this unit out. This is still a very good build right now, and again, if you have some sort of canto control in the back, you can go with attack res ploy there. Either of these builds, the one on the right's a bit cheaper, the one on the left is a bit more expensive. They are very good depending on what you see most in your replays. And depending on your level, you're going to see different things. For me, the one on the left is the more useful. I have not given him attack scal 4 yet, but I am seriously considering it. The last thing here, of course, is the arena build. 760 is definitely usable. I do hate that we don't have a good special for dragons. Blue Flame is about it, and yeah, you can do some supportive things with an Infantry Pulse 4. Counter Roar is excellent and really plays in with a lot of this unit does. This is something that you can definitely do if this is your favorite unit and you want to merge them up. So, looking at, this is tier 0 that we just got through. This is the way it works. I have heard some folks wanting to put Kvasir in a separate tier above Embla and Medeus. I'm not ready to do that yet. I think all of these units have a solid place in the meta, but understand that if we'll look at trends here in a bit, and we'll look at how that's going for these teams. So next up, let's look at tier 1. Bramimond has such huge fans, and rightfully so. This unit is a very, very serviceable nuke right now, which is saying something with the amount of competition there is out there. Looking at the skills, though, the big thing, we just talked about it, is Feud. Feud is so powerful and can help this unit both in summoner duels and in Aether Raid's defense. I am a big fan of this unit, and I think you can do a ton with this unit. The last thing that is really big for this one is the damage piercing. The damage reduction piercing is absolutely huge and kind of puts this unit over the top. We'll talk about what we're doing with that and the stacking and all that great stuff. First up, though, I want to look at AR defense. This is, again, kind of your standard Catria ball, but I've seen this unit in a lot of interesting different pieces. Dancer traps, for instance, where you're taking Triandra and having her jump up and dance, and then having Guidance 4 on her, and then having Bramimond jump out and attack someone from there. This unit hits hard enough, Bramimond hits hard enough that it is a very viable strategy. Particularly when you're pairing him in combination with someone like Claude, you get kind of a yin and yang, and you get two different pieces that are just absolutely destroying the enemy. We talked about the difference in general for low threat range teams. You want Medeus. For high threat range teams, you want Embla, and this again is a low threat range team. The next thing we're looking at there is just Bramimond and Summoner duels, and in general, I'm going to want him in, again, some kind of Catria ball. He works really well with her, and in particular the warping, but the 2 hits as well really play into what he does, and he takes advantage of all of that. Now, this has magical no follow-up, so you're getting even more piercing per hit, which does a lot of damage, especially in combination with Feud. Keep in mind, Feud stops things like Fallen Maria and her miracle effect, as well as any bonuses that any other units are giving that are colorless. That also includes one of the main tanks right now is Brave Korin or Bridal Tiki, and completely isolates them, which is very nice. When you're looking at Arena, he does only score 754, but with the new bonus doubler 4 and Seal Res 4, you can do a lot of damage with this unit. Have a lot of fun if this is a unit that you have in your barracks. Again, the advantage to these units is you don't have to bless them. They're just automatically blessed every other season. Next up, we have Yune, and Yune has kind of seen a resurgence, and the big thing is because of flyer lines and how well she works within those. We're briefly going over her skills. The big thing is the dominance effect combined with all the debuffs that she's dishing out. It's kind of spectacular, and it helps this unit just absolutely cripple the enemy team in both enemy phase and player phase strategies. Looking at builds for AR defense, I really like her in these hybrid Cav / Hinoka lines. These Cav flyer lines, essentially one side of the team you have as a Cav line and the other side you have as a flyer line. It works very well. Throw guard and flared mirror on her, and I cannot wait to get this build from the upcoming Hall of Forms, which should be this next month. Anyway, absolutely spectacular, and again, she helps with speed. She boosts the team's speed, which is very valuable. Now, because you have Kvasir, is that something that you might want to swap this unit out and possibly take out Triandra altogether? We just talked about the value there, and that is a possibility, but there are some times that you don't have the right pieces to make that team, and yeah. The last thing is in summoner duels, and again, because she puts out so many debuffs, she can really help raid bosses. Her time on that is fading, and there's some other debuffers out there, but I still see that regularly. I used to see that a lot with Altina, now I see that with Lucia, and of course Lucia is the de facto raid boss right now. So keep that in mind. Sabotage AR3 is good in either AR defense or summoner duels, depending on what you want to do with this unit. That life and death 4, I know you're looking at that funny. What that basically is saying is you want to play with this unit's attack so that it matches into Lucia's so that you can get Ellawood. And there are a lot of fun ways you can do that and a lot of fun ways you can adjust that. Looking over at Arena, I wish she scored better because she is a lot of fun, but yeah. There is also the option just to take Chaos Named out altogether. You have a unit like Soniki, understand that you have a lot of debuffs coming onto the enemy team already. If you have that in something like Arena with, say, if you pair this unit with Legendary Robin, I cannot say enough good things about Guidance or Soaring Guidance 4. You guys know how much I love it. I do hate that you have to have G-Dual Flying 4 on her. It absolutely cripples her as a unit, but she just doesn't score high enough otherwise, and 754 is already very, very borderline. So there we have tier 1, and you can see how these units stack up. I like these units. I think they're actually raising in value right now. We'll talk more about that later though. Let's head on to tier 2. I want you to look at this preference skill and preference weapon and look at how small it is, especially compared to all of the other stuff we just had Kvasir herself had an entire page for her preference weapon and preference skill. This thing is tiny, and this unit desperately needs a refine. The problem we're going to talk about here is because she's ranged, she's very easy to bait out, but this is one of the easiest things I had to write up. Understand all of these refines are guesses. Folks have put together some really fantastic guesses on when these hit. They are approximate values, but we're looking at this next year, probably in the summer, which is soon-ish. So we can see her skip the line possibly, but there are some things they could do to this unit that could make her more fun. Just look at a tuned Triandra and see all of the possibilities there. But yes, essentially this is a dance and ruse bot. Looking at the way you put this unit together for catch your balls, and we've seen this before, the problem is getting her baited out, and I ask anyone who has made an Aether Raids defense, it runs rampant in that kind of team, and it's really hard. Yeah, once you bait the unit out, she doesn't do enough damage to actually do anything to any unit, but she has enough attack that is a problem. How do we fix that? This is not a meme. You make a 1+10 or a 1+1. There are a lot of good things for this unit and for this unit to inherit and have. Essentially what you do is you get one copy, you build them all the way up, and then you merge them into a level 1 copy. Is that expensive? Hey, dancers are expensive. Defense teams are expensive. That helps you a ton, gets rid of one of her major problems, by the way. So that's something to look at as you're going through this. I prefer this to taking off a weapon. There are so many things that you open up to the enemy defense when one of your units doesn't have a weapon. Especially when a unit is this flimsy, it means absolutely any ranged unit that this unit comes in contact with, that unit is going to demolish Triandra, which is good. You don't want to be able to have them just sit there and run around while Triandra can do nothing without a weapon. The other thing to look at here, though, is a flyer line, and I like this a little better because what you're seeing here is because of the high threat range, you're not worried about her outpacing your defense. She actually becomes better in those circumstances, putting her on the back line and having Hinoka give her enough juice to get through to get two other units without actually going through them and demolishing them. The other thing I'll say, Firestorm Dance 3 is amazing, and especially on flyer lines, being able to dance and then give a unit Desperation is just, it can absolutely tear defenses to shreds, especially when she dances one of your highest powered units, which is probably the one that just went. So this is a way you can definitely use her and be fine with that. Dancers in Arena, I've talked about this over and over again, but I don't care about the score hit. It makes it better, and I am less frustrated when I have a dancer. It really does make the game mode so much better. If you're a Triandra fan, this is definitely something you can do, and I would encourage it. We are waiting to see what kind of refine she gets, and that is soonish, so I caution about any sort of investment you're doing to her. Note is an interesting thing just because Pathfinder is so powerful in these high threat range teams, and we've seen how good that is right now. The thing we want to look at when we're looking at the skills here is this damage reduction, which unfortunately has a speed check. And one of the things on defense, it is so difficult to win speed checks when you're a defensive unit. You have to have ridiculous speed, like bonkers off the wall speed. And older units don't have it, especially with the way speed creep has been going. So Pathfinder is very good, but you have to find some way for this unit to survive, and Moon Twin Wing doesn't always help, so you might need to look at something else. Gambit, for instance, would be absolutely amazing, but that is a high investment. We're going to see this unit get a refine in about a year, so be on the lookout for that, and just caution to whoever's going to inherit stuff to this unit. But looking at the way this unit works, the AR defense, I didn't put Gambit up here because it's just such a high cost, but understand that is something you can do. I've got right here the Saskatchewan Kestrel Stance 3, Canto Control 3 build, and this unit holds up. 55 speed isn't bad. The problem is she doesn't have enough from her preference weapon, but you saw it just a second ago, and this is the Embla version of the Cav line that you saw, and Summoners, she still does a whole lot. She just doesn't do as much against player phase teams, which it can be tough. As far as Summoner duels, way back in the day, she used to be just absolutely amazing because she could take a lot of punishment and survive units like Brave Seliph. That has since passed, but understand that, I mean, this is the bonus doubler 4, so you're taking advantage of her already bonus doubler and adding in more bonus doubler. So this unit can still be a frontliner. The problem is Guidance 4 and Soaring Guidance frontliners are so much better. But this unit doesn't have the same counter. In fact, this unit doesn't have a counter as far as extending a range +1. Like, that is not something that happens because there is nothing that can take away her Pathfinder status. As far as looking at things like Arena, she does score 756, which is okay. She is a lot of fun to use there. Extending your range is absolutely incredible. I have a Dogger that I have fully merged that I regularly use, and I've got to say, yeah, it can be really, really fun. She can still kill things, which is nice. She doesn't have the speed she really needs. When her refine comes, though, I think that might change. So, looking at the tier 2 folks, you can see Nott, you can see Triandra, and these are 2 units that are in desperate need of refined, and we'll be getting them within the year, so we'll see how they turn out. Next up, we're going to go into tier 3. Next up, we have Hell, and Hell is in a really interesting spot. It is a bad time to have a preference C skill as a flyer, just because, again, the melee frontliner role is so good, and that inhibits what they can do. This is a fairly good kit, though, otherwise. Understand her herself, like, she gets a ton of stuff. You're seeing it right here. The biggest thing is the miracle effect that you get versus anyone who's not a mage or a staff unit. That can be really critical in, again, holding the line. And it is possible to take off Inevitable Death and put on Guidance 4, but Well, let's get into the thing here. Oh, the one other thing is warp to nearest space to foe within 4 spaces, which can be very powerful and very sneaky. But the problem with sneaky is it's a gimmick, and once people get used to it, they plan for it, and it is not as good. So keep that in mind. It's good when it first comes out and then fades very quickly as far as longevity goes. Okay, looking at this unit, I had a hard time coming up with how to use this unit in different modes. She is very interesting, but very hard to actually get onto a team. What I'm showing you right here is a Catria Ball, and I'm using her as a frontliner to block any kind of melee Gale Force attacks. Of course, you got Medeus there to block any kind of bolt tower. That is definitely possible with this unit. She doesn't have any AoE resistance, but not many people do, so that's a hard thing to get through. Still, I think I would rather have a nuke, but this is still interesting and can cause a lot of shenanigans when someone forgets where this unit is and they warp behind the whatever tank or frontliner is up in front, and this unit does some shenanigans. The other interesting use I've seen for her, and I've seen a lot of different Summoner Duels thing, and that's becoming more her mode. Summoner Duels S, not Summoner Duels R, by the way. But when you're using her in conjunction with Omni tanks, it is a thing where you can get her close enough to the front line where she can then snipe one of the main threats to your Omni tank, or your raid boss rather. It's something to look at, and it's kind of a fun use for her. I do know some diehards that use her all the time in this kind of configuration, and you can use her in this mode. It's not like the other units where it's like never have I ever or will I ever. Anyway, the last thing is she'd actually be absolutely fantastic in Arena if she scored better. 754 is abysmal. That is, you only take that kind of hit if you have a dancer, really. But I mean, G-Dual Flying 4, Gambit 4 is really fun on her. We talked about that in the Summoner Duels thing, but yeah. This is a fun build if you have her merged up, and they gave us a free copy of G-Dual Flying 4. Gambit 4 is just so expensive right now and on so few units. The last thing for my diehards is Sothis. Oh, I gotta love Sothis. We talked about it so much. Like, this is a unit that is just in the wrong mode. They've gotten better at this, but they did a terrible job on both her initial release and her refine. I can't say that enough, and there's no hope for her. Like, there's no redemption from this. So what do you do? As far as AR defense, there's some interesting things you can look at if you just have to use her. If she's a bonus unit, you need her badly. As a ruse buff support bot, she's not bad. Things like Infantry Pulse 4, even as a mythic, you can get her up to this 66 HP and have some fun there. You can also do some rally shenanigans where you are using Speed Ruse 4 and debuffing the enemy as well. Do I suggest this in particular? I mean, it would be tough. Just make sure there are infantry on your team to take advantage of this in the way of nukes. The next thing I'm looking at here is as a chaos bonus, which is a legitimate way you can use this unit. This is bonus stats you're seeing here, and again, as a tank, this is not a bad unit at all. You're seeing her with null counter disrupt 4. There is a ton of other damage reduction that you can stack onto her, which is absolutely fantastic, and especially combined with Robin, Brave Robin, she can do a lot of damage. That Sirius is a nice special, and she can use it, and this is fun, and yeah, I really do like this build. But again, she's in the wrong mode. The last 756 is good enough to use in Arena, so keep that in mind. You're looking at it right there, and I mean, what can I say? Like, this unit shows up. I have used her before. She misses kills now, but that's because I don't have a proper kit on her. Counter Roar 4 and Attack Speed Finish 4 help her a ton. I am probably one of the few people who are looking forward to building her when she has her Hall of Forms run. So where are we at? And this is a big question, and this is I wanted to look at not only where these units were ranked, but also where they were going and put out also their arena score as well. And I mean, you can see Kvasir just came out. I think she is heading up. The triangle sign actually means that they are staying steady right now. And generally when a unit is staying steady, that means they're about to start falling. So keep that in mind. Embla is on the cusp of starting to fall out. So keep that in mind if you're looking at investing in Embla. I think her days are headed down until we have Savior's resurge, which could happen, and in that moment she would pop right back up. Medeus is becoming more and more of an on-guard bot, and that is harder and harder to stomach. I think we will move more and more to these high threat range teams where you don't have to use Medeus because he is not a unit that is enhancing the way your unit performs. I do have Bramimond heading down. That is because, again, nukes are getting so good. The reason I have Yune heading up as opposed to that is because a lot of, well, in conjunction with Soniki, who really deals damage based on debuffs. I think Yune does an fantastic job working together with her, along with the resurgence of flyer lines and how Hanoka has just given them a pulse. I mean, they didn't have one before. Like, this is absolutely fantastic that we're seeing a new type of archetype. And I think Yune is a unit that can be a very good part of that. She still hits hard enough as long as she's getting enough debuffs to do that. Note, I definitely have going down. I am not a huge fan, although there are definitely some uses for her, and you saw one at the very beginning of this. Triandra, I am just all sorts of copiuming there, and I am saying Refine is coming, and I really think she is. For Triandra, I actually have her holding steady, and I am cautiously waiting for how her Refine's going to be, but understand that the same reason Yune is rising is the reason I think Triandra is starting to rise up. And that is that, again, flyer lines are here and they cover over some of her weaknesses. Not all, but some. Hell, I think, still has some uses and is nice. Sothis is in the basement and just continues to plummet, Summoners. It is something to watch. So, the last thing I want to go over is just some builds that I really love. The Medeus build here, I know I just talked about him and how he's falling, but this is a way that you can keep him relevant for a little longer, because a lot of you still need him for your defenses, and this is basically one piece of fodder that you really need in the Scowl skill, and then whatever supportive things you need for the C skill. Everything else really fits just with what he already does. I think Bramimond, I know I put him as starting to trend down, but I still think this build is just absolutely fantastic and is something that is a lot of fun. The last thing, and just because these are best builds, but this one is just so much fun, and this is the counter roar for Embla, which I just thought was ridiculous and I had a ton of fun creating. The other two are very useful and you can use in just about any mode right now. The Embla would be just for fun if she is just one of your favorites. Summoners, I have been working a lot on trying to get this format going, and I've been listening to you. One of the things you wanted more of last time I put this out was team building. I'm still looking for any types of things that you would like to see to improve this. I do listen to you. I listen to the comments and everything else. Feel free to ping me in the Discord as well. If I've got time, I will definitely answer. With that being said, though, I have another one. I have something at least coming out for Gulveg. We'll be watching that, and I'll leave the link here whenever that's coming up. But thank you so much, members. You are absolutely amazing. Take care, folks, and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon.